You are 3 rows into a soybean field, the light going orange, and the display in front of you flashes a code you have never seen. The machine dies. Not a breakdown you can smell or hear. A shutdown, a little screen telling you the tractor you paid for will not move until a dealer plugs in a laptop you are not allowed to touch. I know that feeling because I lived it. And here is the part that will keep you sitting here. Farmers just like me took the biggest name in green paint into a federal courtroom, and they are winning. The trap that grounded my machine has a way out, and I am going to walk you through it, step by step, until you are standing on the other side of it. Before we are done, I am going to give you a case number, a signing date, and one document most owners have never heard of that hands you back control of iron you already own. This is not for the guy shopping for a new tractor next spring. This is for you, right now, with a lockdown machine sitting in your shed. Let me take you back to the evening it happened to me. It was late September, harvest pressing down, a storm 2 days out on the radar, and my combine threw a fault out past the back 40, where the cell signal drops to 1 bar. I climbed down, checked the obvious things, everything a man who has turned wrenches for 30 years checks. Nothing was broken. Nothing was leaking. The machine simply decided it would not run until somebody with the right software said it could. That is the moment the whole thing became clear to me. I did not own a machine. I owned permission to use one, and the permission could be pulled. So I called the dealer, 92 miles away. Their soonest opening was 6 days out, and the storm was 2 days out, and the math on that is the kind of math that ends farms. When the technician finally rolled up in his truck, he plugged in a laptop, tapped a few keys, cleared the code, and handed me an invoice. The labor rate alone was $180 an hour, and most of those hours were him driving, not fixing. The actual repair took him under 20 minutes. The part of the bill that hurt was not the part, it was the drive, it was the weight. It was the rain that came and took a slice of my crop while I stood there holding a piece of paper. That is when I started digging. And what I found is that I was not unlucky. I was engineered. Here is how the trap was built, and I want you to see every wire of it, because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The modern tractor and combine runs on controllers and software the same way it runs on diesel. Nothing new about electronics and equipment. That is fine. The trick is in the diagnostic tool. To read those fault codes, clear them, and re-enable a machine after certain repairs, you need a piece of software called Service Advisor. And for years, that tool was locked to dealers only. You, the owner, the man whose name is on the title and the loan, could not buy full access at any price. Think about what that does. A part fails. You can physically replace it in your own shop. You have done harder jobs by lantern light, but when you install the new part, the machine will not recognize it until the software blesses the pairing, and the software lives on a laptop only a dealer is allowed to carry. So a repair you could finish in an afternoon becomes a phone call, a wait, a drive, and a bill. I found a report from a consumer research group called US, PIRG, with a title I will never forget, Deer in the Headlights, laying out exactly this pattern. Independent shops shut out. Farmers forced back to the dealer for repairs they were fully capable of doing. And the Federal Trade Commission itself, back in 2021, put out a report to Congress called Nixing the Fix, documenting how manufacturers across whole industries block repair to funnel owners into their own service networks. This was not my paranoia talking. This was the government putting it on paper. But knowing you are trapped is not the same as getting free. So I kept pulling the thread, and the thread led straight into a courthouse. Here is the first piece of buried evidence I want to hand you, and I want you to remember it. In January of 2022, a farm called Forest River Farms filed suit against Deere & Company. Not a letter, not a complaint to a bureau. A lawsuit alleging the company had built an illegal repair monopoly and used its control of that diagnostic software to squeeze farmers out of fixing their own equipment. And Forest River was not alone. Suit after suit landed, filed by farmers across the grain belt, all telling the same story I could have told, all pointing at the same locked laptop. Now here is why that matters to you tonight. Those cases did not get thrown out. They got so numerous and so similar that the federal court system pulled them together into a single consolidated action, what the lawyers call multi-district litigation, assigned the number 3030, and parked it in the Northern District of Illinois. In Deere and Company Repair Services antitrust litigation. That is the name. Write it down. Because when a company that size is facing a consolidated antitrust fight, it means a judge looked at the pile and decided there was something real worth hearing. And a judge did more than that. In late 2023, Deere asked the court to make the whole thing go away. The standard first move, the motion to dismiss. The judge, Ian Johnston, refused to dismiss the core of it. He let the antitrust claims move forward. That is the legal equivalent of a man in a black robe looking at the company and saying, "You have questions to answer." For farmers who spent years being told this was just how it works, that ruling was the first crack of daylight under the shed door. For years, the industry answer to all of this was, trust us, we will handle repair fairly, no need for laws. And in January of 2023, the American Farm Bureau Federation, the biggest farm organization in the country, sat down with Deere and signed something, a memorandum of understanding, signed on the 8th of January, 2023, at the Farm Bureau's own convention. In it, Deere formally agreed to give farmers and independent shops access to the tools, software, and documentation needed to repair their own equipment. Now, I want to be straight with you the way a neighbor would be, because I promised you the truth and not a sales pitch. That memorandum was not a law. It had no teeth you could take to court, and plenty of repair advocates said as much out loud. Some called it a way to slow down real legislation by looking cooperative. I read it that way too at first. But here is what most owners missed, and this is your step forward. That memorandum, weak as it was, put in writing that the manufacturer would make repair tools available to owners. It became a document you could point at. It became the thing that lawmakers and attorneys general could hold up and say, "You already admitted farmers deserve this access, so let us make it binding." It did not free anybody by itself. It became the crowbar for the people who came next. And the people who came next did not mess around. Because while the Farm Bureau was signing memorandums, one state decided a handshake was not good enough and wrote the fix into law, Colorado. In April of 2023, the governor signed the Consumer Right to Repair Agricultural Equipment Act, the first law of its kind in the entire nation aimed squarely at farm equipment. It took effect on the 1st of January 2024, and it does what the memorandum only promised. It legally requires manufacturers to give farmers and independent technicians access to the parts, tools, software, and documentation to fix their own machines, not as a favor, as a requirement backed by the state. Think about the distance we just traveled. A farmer stranded in a field with a code he cannot clear. A lawsuit. A consolidated federal antitrust case a judge refused to bury. A national memorandum admitting the principle. And then a state turning that principle into hard law. Every one of those is a step closer to the exit. And every one of them happened because owners like you and me refused to accept that renting our own iron was normal. But I can hear the objection, because I made it myself. I do not farm in Colorado. My tractor is not in a courtroom. A memorandum I never signed does not start my combine in the rain. Fair. So let me turn now and talk straight to the man who feels most trapped, because this next part I built for you. If you are sitting there tonight with a machine you feel chained to, a controller you cannot read, a dealer you cannot escape, listen close, because there are things you can do this week without waiting on any court or any legislature. First, that diagnostic software, Service Advisor, is no longer the total dealer secret it once was. Under the pressure of all this, Deere put out a version aimed at customers, the Customer Service Advisor Kit that an owner can actually subscribe to and run on a laptop to read fault codes and run diagnostics on many machines. Is it everything the dealer has? No. But it turns you from a man staring at a code he cannot read into a man who knows exactly what is wrong before he ever makes a phone call. And knowing what is wrong is the difference between a fair bill and a fleecing. Before I show you the memorandum and the state that turned this fight into law, I want to stop for a second, because everything you just felt in that field is exactly what one book was built to end. Picture that same evening again, only this time the code flashes and you already know your 5 moves before you ever reach for the phone. That is what the complete iron furrow system puts in your hands. It is called fixed or owned, and it lays the ownership trap bare, showing you what your license really lets Deere control, then hands you 5 cash recovery moves ranked by real return and honest effort. It gives you a 12-month field map from the shock of that invoice all the way to running your own iron on your own terms, plus a second volume, Break the Lock, that walks you into year 2 control with documented numbers and a step-by-step order of operations, and an exclusive third volume on running your machines with no dealer leash at all. Every volume stands on its own, and together they are the complete field manual. And here is a check you can run tonight for nothing. Pull out your worst old dealer invoice, add up the drive time, the wait days, and the crop you lost sitting there, and set that number against what one older, fully fixable machine costs to buy outright. Do that math once, and the trap stops being invisible. The fastest way to get the books is to scan the QR code right there on your screen, or go to the link in the description or the pinned comment. And this is not a someday problem, because that repair bill is already running against you every season you stay locked in. Now let me show you the next step out, because this one has a date you can hold on to. Second, you are not the first person to hit your exact fault code. There are farmer forums and equipment groups where owners post the code, the fix, and the workaround, machine by machine, model by model. I have solved problems at my own bench at 10 at night by reading what another farmer 3 states over posted about the same controller. That knowledge is free, and it is specific, and the dealers would rather you never find it. Third, and this is the one that costs you nothing but a little backbone. When a dealer tells you a repair requires their software, ask them, in writing, to state exactly which repair function is locked and why. Make them put it on the invoice. Owners who document that pattern are the ones feeding the lawyers and the attorneys general the evidence that keeps these cases alive. Your bad invoice is not just your loss, it is ammunition. And here is the deeper move, the one that changes your future instead of just patching your present. Every dollar this system costs you in downtime and forced dealer trips is a number you can put against the price of independence. When my combine sat waiting 6 days, I did the math on what that lost me, and it was more than a used older machine cost to buy outright, a machine simple enough that I can fix every inch of it myself. A lot of farmers I know have started keeping one older, fully mechanical tractor in the shed on purpose, a machine with no controller that can lock it, precisely so that when the storm is 2 days out and the dealer is 6 days out, they can still put seed in the ground or grain in the bin. That is not nostalgia. That is a survival strategy dressed up as an old tractor. But even that leads to a harder question, and I am not going to dodge it, because it is the question that kept me up at night. If they can lock a machine, can they reach in and lock it whenever they want, from wherever they are? And the answer to that is where this whole story stops being about repair bills and starts being about who really controls the machine parked in your yard. Because there is a moment that proved it, and it did not happen on an American farm. It happened in a war. When Russian forces rolled through parts of Ukraine, some of them looted farm equipment, hauling off combines and tractors worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, trucking them hundreds of miles back across the border. And then those stolen machines went dead, bricked, remotely disabled, from far away, so the thieves ended up with $250,000 paperweights they could not run. Now, everybody cheered, and I cheered too, because thieves got what they deserved. But when I stopped cheering, a cold thought settled in. If a machine can be reached out to and shut off from that far away, over a border, in a war zone, then the machine in my yard can be reached too. The kill switch is real. The only question is whose finger sits near the button and under what terms. That is the villain finally stepping into full light. This was never really about protecting you from a bad repair. It was about who holds the power over a machine after you have paid for it in full. And once I understood that, the memorandums and the marketing about caring for the customer read very differently. They wrote the terms. They controlled the tool. And for years they funded and staffed the very positions that were supposed to be neutral referees on repair. The fox did not just guard the henhouse. The fox drew the blueprints for the henhouse and paid the carpenter. So now you understand the full shape of the trap, and you have seen the first steps out. But I promised you an exit, a real one, a payoff for staying with me this far. And it comes down to one thing that changed the entire fight. One document with a date so recent that most owners have not caught up to it yet. Because remember, the memorandum had no teeth, and the lawsuits move slow, and one state law only covers one state. What was missing was the heaviest hammer in the country coming down on the whole thing at once. And in January of 2025, it did. On the 15th of January, 2025, the Federal Trade Commission sued Deere and Company, not a report this time, not a stern letter. A lawsuit brought by the nation's top competition regulator, joined by the Attorneys General of Illinois and Minnesota, accusing the company of running an unlawful repair monopoly, of deliberately keeping that fully capable version of the diagnostic software out of farmers' hands to force them back to dealers, and of driving up repair costs on the backs of the people who feed the country. This is the government I quoted earlier from the Nixing the Fix report, except now it is not writing about the problem. It is dragging the company into court over it. Here is why that is your exit. And here is the part almost nobody has put together for you. Every piece we walked through tonight just became load-bearing. The Forest River suit and the consolidated case 3030 proved the pattern in front of a judge who would not dismiss it. The memorandum in 2023 put the company's own admission in writing. Colorado's law proved the fix was possible and legal. And now the Federal Trade Commission has stacked all of that into a single case with the power to force a nationwide remedy on machines you already own, no matter what state you farm in. The way out was there the whole time. It was buried in filings with numbers instead of names, kept alive by a handful of stubborn farmers who filed suit when everyone told them not to bother, by researchers who wrote the reports, by one state that refused to wait, and by hackers and tinkerers who proved the locks were locks and not safety features. I have to tell you about that last group because it is the most satisfying piece of the whole thing. At a security conference in August of 2022, a researcher who goes by Sick Codes got up in front of a crowd and showed how he had jailbroken a Deere display, cracked right through the software lock, and to prove the machine was fully his to command, he made the tractor's own screen run the old video game Doom. A tractor dashboard playing a 1990s shooter. It was a joke, and it was a declaration at the same time. The lock was never sacred. It was a choice. And a choice one man can break in his spare time is a choice a nation of farmers can break for good. So here is what you do this week, plainly, because I promised you simple and I meant it. 1. Look up whether the Customer Service Advisor tool covers your model and get yourself the ability to read your own fault codes so you never again stand in a field not knowing what is wrong. 2. Find the forum or the group for your specific machine and search your model number tonight because your fix is very likely already posted by a man who lived it. 3. Start demanding in writing that any dealer tell you exactly which repair function is locked and why, and keep every one of those invoices because that paper is now evidence in a fight the federal government has officially joined. 4. Keep one simple, fixable machine in your fleet that no software can ever ground, so a lock never again decides whether your harvest comes in. And 5. Read what the Colorado law actually requires, because it is the template every other state is now copying, and knowing what full repair access looks like on paper is how you recognize when someone tries to sell you less. That is the exit, not a promise, a path with case numbers and dates and a tool you can hold in your hand. The men who told you this was just how modern farming works were protecting a business model, not your machine. And that model is now standing in a federal courtroom explaining itself. I started this in a soybean field at dusk, holding an invoice for a drive instead of a repair, watching a storm come for a crop I could not save because a screen would not let me work. I am not there anymore. And neither are you. Not once you have walked all the way through what we just covered. The freedom to fix what you own was never a gift the company could give you or take away. It was yours the day you signed the loan, and it is being pried back open right now, one filing at a time, by people exactly like you. You are the kind of owner who was never built to rent his own iron. You buy a machine to outlive you, to hand down, to fix at your own bench on your own time with your own hands, and no line of code was ever going to change what kind of man you are. That is why you made it to the end of this, and the guy who clicked away in the first minute never will. So tell me one thing, and be specific, because I read these and so do the folks fighting this. What was your worst forced dealer trip, the one that grounded you at the worst possible moment, and what did that invoice actually say? Name the machine, name the code if you remember it, name the town you were closest to when it happened. Put it in the comments right now, because every story we stack up is one more piece of the pattern, and the pattern is exactly what is winning in court. If you refuse to keep renting what you already bought, then you belong with the owners taking their iron back, and following along here is how you stay in that fight. Next time, I am going to show you exactly which older machines the smartest farmers I know are buying on purpose right now. The ones with no lock, no controller, and no leash, so the next storm never catches you waiting on a laptop that is 92 miles away. I lived every minute of what you just watched. The lockout, the wait, the storm, and there's more I couldn't fit here. Inside my membership, the right to repair, I pick up right where this video stopped. Ask me your own question, and a real person answers. Never a bot. Farmers like you already belong here. Just point your phone's camera at the code on the screen, and you can cancel any time. Now, if you think this fight is just about tractors, wait until you see what's coming next. John Deere is quietly repeating the very mistake that broke another giant. That story starts right here.